Having said that, Allah gave us a strong instruction right after describing nations that suffer with hunger, suffer with fear. He says, therefore, you better eat halal. What's Allah saying? Allah is saying, if you don't commit to halal and you don't commit to tayyib, you will be ungrateful for the favor of Allah. And what's the formula for a nation that's ungrateful for the favor of Allah? فَأَذَاقَهَا اللَّهُ لِبَاسَ الْجُوعِ وَالْخَوْفِ بِمَا كَانُوا يَصْنَعُونَ. That's the formula. The rule doesn't change. Gravity is gravity, whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim. If you're going to jump off a second floor building, right, jump off the balcony, your religion will not determine how fast you fall. Allah has set certain rules in place, they apply, whether you're Muslim or you're not Muslim. But for the Muslims, Allah is basically telling them, if you don't commit yourself to what is permissible and you don't stay away from what is not permissible, the consequences are not going to be any different for you. You're not going to be some kind of exception, right? Warning that Allah gave of not observing the halal properly. How does He warn us? He says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمْ الْكَذِبِ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ. It's a very uniquely worded ayah. He didn't just say, don't say about things, this is halal and this is haram. The easy Arabic of this ayah is هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ. Everybody can understand that. Everybody can understand that this is permissible, this is impermissible. Don't just say about anything, this is okay, this is not okay. This is allowed, this is not allowed. But before that, there's this complex phrase. He says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمْ الْكَذِبِ. Al-kadhib here, for Arabic students, is actually a maf'ul mutlaq. And it's an alternative for wasfan. يعني wasfan kadhiban. أو الوصف الكذب. Basically what the ayah is saying in simple words is don't talk about things in such elaborate, passionate, loud fashion and overwhelmingly create propaganda until people start believing what you're saying, even though it's a lie, and you make a really strong, compelling, it seems like you're making a really strong, compelling case for something being halal and something being haram. There are some people you might talk to and they're dead wrong, but they're really good at raising their voice in the middle of a conversation. And they say the dumbest thing, but they say it with an enormous amount of confidence and an extremely elevated voice. And their voice is supposed to compensate for the fact that they're spewing nonsense. And you hear that loud, intimidating voice and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to bother arguing with this because this is getting a little too intense for me. But the person who did this, the obnoxious person who raised their voice, how did they perceive it and how did other people in the room perceive it? This guy won the argument. This guy had a better case to me because he just raised his voice and it sounded good. But the thing is, you're covering the weakness of your argument with the strength of your voice. Your diaphragm is not an evidence, right? Your raised voice is not an evidence. Your pounding on a podium is not an evidence. These are all additional things that can have a psychological impact, right? But they don't become the truth. Now, at a level of society, what happens? You can have, for example, nowadays, you can have podcasters, or you could have people that comment on politics or religion or whatever else. And they're very passionate the way they speak. They have great oratory skill. And they may be saying the most absurd, ridiculous things, but they say it with such gravitas, with such strength, that people listen to that and say, wow, that was powerful, right? Just for my own education often, because we happen to be blessed to live in Texas, I tune into a lot of Christian radio, right, when I'm driving, just to see what the khutbah on the other side is like, right? So, and the oratory skill is actually remarkable, but the ridiculousness is equally remarkable, right? The lack of evidence, the absurdity is equally strong, but it's being presented in such a powerful way and it's being said over and over again, which leads me to a word that many of you are familiar with, propaganda. لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبِ also means that the same lie is being described with many, many tongues. The same message is being given, the same propaganda is being spread, but it's being spread through children's programming, through podcasts, through YouTube, through mainstream media, this, that, the other. Everybody's saying it. And even before mass media, people just say things, right? People hold beliefs. Now, let me tell you how this works in a Muslim society. Because the khutbah isn't about non-Muslim society, it's about Muslim society.